You probably know about the United Way, the charity fund to which so many of us pledge a payroll deduction throughout the year. You might not have heard about a new mission the United Way of Brevard plans to undertake this year with part of its $6.7 million in fundraising. As President Rob Raines tells us, the organization is focusing more on the building blocks of a prosperous life: education, health, and income. Especially important, improving literacy for kids by the 3rd grade. Why would charity fundraisers do that? Today, we let Raines explain. Rob, you just kicked off the 2013 United Way campaign up at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex. What's going on this year? What's the goal? What's new?
Well, Matt, first, let me thank you for inviting me here today. And that kickoff is the best kickoff I've ever been to. It is the first time since they opened the Atlantis Experience that they did a sit-down dinner. And we, United Way, was so honored to be the agency that was able to have that done.
Dine beneath the shovel.
Oh, it was so cool. It's so cool. So we appreciate Bill Moore and all the folks at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex for letting us do that. But that was just last week, and it was awesome. Go to Florida today. See the pictures. I would encourage folks.
Thanks for the plug. I appreciate that very much. So let's talk a little bit about your goal and just kind of an overview of the campaign. Every year you're trying to raise a lot of money for a lot of different charities. Fill us in. Right.
Well, speaking of plugs, the campaign chair this year is your boss. It's one of my bosses too on the United Way board is Jeff Keel, and he is the 2013 United Way campaign chair. And the goal is $6,670,000 to be raised right here in Brevard County.
And give us a sense of where that money goes. I mean, so many of us wind up checking that payroll deduction and kind of forgetting about it through the course of the year. Tell us what kind of work that money does.
Well, let me tell you where it comes from, and then I'll tell you where it goes, okay?
No problem.
So we have over 26,000 individuals here in Brevard County that checkmark that pledge card that you talked about, or are retired and send in a check through our direct mail campaign. And that's about 75+% of that total. We get some money from corporate gifts. Publix is the largest corporate gift we receive, nearly $300,000 from Publix Corporation, which is a matching gift. And Harris is number 2. Our largest campaign is Harris, over $1.3 million from Harris Corporation. Publix is second with over $800,000. And we have about 400 organizations that run campaigns in our community. And then we get a nice chunk of money from retirees that maybe were in the workplace, still remember United Way. And so that's where the money comes from. We fund 43 different partner agencies, 62 different programs to help people that really need help. It's a wide array of services. We fund agencies that are helping children, like the Boys and Girls Club and Big Brothers Big Sisters, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We have agencies that provide services to the elderly, the Meals on Wheels program, many different programs through Aging Matters in Brevard. We fund organizations that help individuals with mental or physical disabilities, like Brevard Achievement Center and Bridges, and I could go on and on. Of course, we have agencies that help folks that are in need, like the Sharing Centers and Salvation Army and American Red Cross. But it is the best way to help the most people. You give not so much to United Way, but through United Way to all of these agencies. We provide oversight, make sure that they're spending the dollars wisely and making a great impact. And so that's why United Way has been successful, and that's been our sort of our brand proposition for 100 years, 50+ years here in Brevard, that give through United Way, and we're going to help these agencies. But we've got some new things going on too.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. We're a news show, so break some news. What are you doing differently this year?
Well, I think this year, if people get the pledge card, they watch our brochure, they're going to see a new message emerging. We have set new priorities around education, income, and health. We do a priorities process, board-driven priority process every 6 years or so. And we continue to fund the safety net of services, but we also look at where we can put more emphasis moving forward. You know, you can't put a priority, make everything a priority. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And so we go through this and say, where can we really try and have greater impact? Where is an area that really needs some extra work? And this year we did, this last process, which we completed last year and the board approved in October of 2012, and we've been working on early implementation and studying throughout 2013. And again, you're seeing it in the materials.
So it's a focus on childhood, education, health. Tell us a little bit more specifically about why do you try to get at that stage of life?
Well, there's a couple things that drove our decisions into education, income, and health. We view that these items as the building block for a good life. If you have a good education, if you have a job and a steady income, and you have good health, you have a chance to achieve the American dream. If any one of those pillars is removed, the chances of being a successful citizen is diminished. And so those are the reasons why we've picked education, income, and health.
What's so important about focusing on education in the early years? I mean, don't we have a school board that we pay a lot of taxes to, and they need to be the ones that we lean on to make sure our kids are educated? Why do that through the United Way?
Yeah, I get that question a little bit. So let me sort of back up just a second, and then I'll answer that. I'm notorious at that. I'm sorry, Matt.
Okay.
But so when we looked at education, income, and health, one of the things, one of the reasons we chose that is to align with our national movement.
Okay.
So just to again go back another step. Sorry again. There are about 1,300 separate and independent United Ways in the United States. And this is United Way of Brevard. I have a local board. I report to them. We make local decisions. But nationally, they encourage United Ways to move forward in similar fashion. And there's a reason why we can do that, why we might want to do that is if United Ways are working on similar projects, we might be eligible for large national grants. If United Ways across the country are working on early education, then maybe from the Gates Foundation we can get $100 million and leverage our work here. Also, if many United Ways are working on similar things, we can move up the learning curve quicker because what they develop, new programs they develop in other areas of the community, we can adopt as well. So that was part of the strategy and part of the decision making on the board to go with education, income, and health. So nationally, they looked at graduation rates. They looked at as a nation, our graduation rate was I want to say around 63% graduation rate.
Okay.
That's a lot of dropouts. When we look to localize education in Brevard, and we talked about several discussions at our board level, we decided to focus on early reading proficiency. Brevard County, the school district here, does a fantastic job. Our graduation rate here is tied for 5th, I believe. The numbers, change, but we have one of the highest graduation rates in the state. Our county does, and it's around 90%. So the national goal was to try and get the graduation rate from 63% to 75 or 77%, and if we hit that, we'd have to go down 13%. We didn't want to do that. So, so we were going to focus on early grade reading, and I want to stress that the discussion at our board was really to try and get upstream, move upstream. I mentioned we fund the safety net of services, domestic violence shelters and youth runaway shelters and all kinds of things that happen when lives go bad. Things happen to people, and that United Way symbols that helping hand up, and those agencies are there to provide that helping hand up. But the thought process is if we can move upstream and towards some of those root causes and have an impact there, then there'd be less need for the safety net down the road.
I see.
And so the superintendent of schools, Brian Bingley, Dr. Bingley's on our board, and he told the story that really resonated for me, is when he was superintendent up in Fairfax, Virginia, and it was winter up there, and they had children that didn't have a coat. That there was a system through not-for-profit agencies that people collected coats, and so if Mrs. Johnson's 4th grade class had a small child that didn't have a coat for the winter, they had a mechanism to get that coat. And what Dr. Bingley would tell his administrators and his teachers up there is, you know, our job is to make sure that that 4th grade child, when he grows up, that his children don't need a coat. And so when I talk about moving upstream, that's what we're talking about, and that's why we want to focus on 3rd grade reading.
I think I heard a statistic from a sheriff in the last couple of years that went something along the lines that if you went and looked at all of the people that are in jail, some huge percentage of them fell behind on reading at some point, probably 3rd grade, something like that. Have you heard that?
Yeah, that was one of the things that was the most alarming statistics as we were deciding what we were going to focus on. And here's the deal. From birth, but from your early years in life through 3rd grade, you're learning to read.
Okay.
Most kids learn to read in kindergarten and 1st grade and learn well by 3rd grade through that early years. But 3rd grade, 4th grade and on, you're reading to learn.
Okay.
And so if you're not on grade level in 3rd or 4th grade, you really put you at a deficit. And so if you're not reading on grade level in 4th grade, you're 4 times more likely to drop out of high school.
Because you're going to fall behind on social studies and history and
Right.
science and everything else that you need to read for, right?
Absolutely. You're going to struggle. It's going to affect everything. Even math, a lot of word problems, you're not going to be able to do that. You're 20 times more likely to be incarcerated if you're not reading on grade level.
Wow.
Here's one of the more stunning stats, that some states use 3rd and 4th grade literacy rates as part of their formula to determine how many prison beds they're going to need in the future, because they'll be able, that's part of the deal. If they can't read, we know we're going to get them. We know we're going to get a percentage of these kids. And so that's why we want to pour effort on it. So I didn't forget your original question. You said, Rob.
We're undigressing here.
Right. Bringing it back home. You ask, well, this is school's job. You know, it's lots of schools, big budget. So here's more stats and numbers. There are 8,760 hours in a year. 24 times 365. It's different for leap year, but I don't have that number. I guess I could just add 24. But 8,760. Children that are in kindergarten through 3rd grade are in school only about 750 hours. Only about 8% of their year are they in school. And on average, they sleep about 42% of their time. So 50% of a child's life in those critical years, kindergarten through 3rd grade, they are awake and not in school. And there's lots of issues out there. Sometimes parents are struggling and they're not able to. Sometimes parents can't read. But it is, we believe, an opportunity for our community to step up and try and help these children. They're there where they're at. And the statistics here, you say, well, we do pretty well here in Brevard because we do have one of the top graduation rates.
Sure.
But let me give you some more statistics. I'm sorry, I'm not that
fine.
great numbers guy, but I guess I'm okay numbers guy. So 3rd grade reading FCAT. So the FCAT, you can get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And you had to have a 3 to be considered grade level or passing.
Yeah, 3 or better is passing. So if you get a 1 or 2 on your FCAT reading, you failed it. So in Brevard County, we have about 5,000 3rd graders. 65% passed. So over a third of 3rd graders here in Brevard County failed the FCAT. Now, if you break it down by demographics, it can be a little bit more alarming. White non-Hispanic children, 73% passed, but still over a quarter failed. If black non-Hispanic, only 37% passed. 63% of our children of color failed the 3rd grade reading FCAT here in Brevard County. And it's really not, race issue, it's more of a poverty issue. If you look at free and reduced lunch. Nearly half of Brevard County third graders on free and reduced lunch failed the third grading reading FCAT. And so the bottom line is that we have to give the schools help. We've talked to them. We've been working with so many different partners. We've been talking to our agencies about what they can do to step up focus on third grade reading. We're going to want to work with Florida Today and other media partners to encourage parents to read more to their children. But a lot of times kids are coming to school not ready to learn. So we need to work at VBK in those early years so they know what letters are and which way to turn a page.
Right.
Schools don't, I think a lot of people don't realize the challenges that schools have when they get these children, and they do a great job. And another problem is summer reading loss.
So give me a sense of some of the things that the United Way would fund that would target some of these problems.
Well, that's why we're having to be more innovative. You know, for the most part, we have funded agencies, and they do brilliant work. But what we're going to have to do to really impact these problems and move the dial on a community, to move the needle at a community level. If you look at those FCAT scores that I talked about, how do you change that 37 to 50 to 60? How do you change that 65% passing rate to 75 or 80%? It's going to take a lot of people coming together to work that problem. So we have already talked to the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and many other groups about stepping up their reading focus in their after-school programs.
Providing tutorials, reading time. You know what? My wife taught at a school that was a Title I school, had a number of kids from poor neighborhoods in South Melbourne and elsewhere. And she would give homework to her kids, and her kids sometimes struggled to get it done, not because they didn't want to do the homework, because there was no place to do the homework.
Right.
She had a student who the only safe place she had to do her homework was sitting on the toilet with the door closed, because there was no place to sit in the house. You couldn't go out on the stoop outside because it wasn't safe. It was just hard to get that done. So to be able to go someplace,
right,
to be able to do that,
right,
it can make all the difference in the world.
Right. So we want to work with it. The research says that if you're going to impact third grade reading, there are 3 main ways that you can do that. The first is mentoring. There's a group here in Brevard County called Rolling Readers. They do great work. It's a relatively small grassroots organization. Their main program is Read Aloud. They have 200 volunteers in 300 classrooms, having an adult that really cares about reading, going in and reading to children and trying to encourage them to be interested in reading. They have another program that's focused on second graders and third graders, bringing in a tutor to work 15 minutes a day, 4 days a week with a child that's behind on reading. And it's a great program, but they're only reaching 60 to 80 children. When you look at 5,000 kids in each of these grade levels in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, that's 20,000 kids, and I don't know what percentage of them could use a mentor, but what we would love to see is to move to 500 to 1,000 reading mentors. And so we're working with Rolling Readers and the Brevard County Public School District to develop a reading program, and we're going to begin a recruitment campaign for folks that want to help with this problem and read to children. Another part I mentioned earlier is summer reading loss. Children lose between 1 to 3 months of learning over this 9 or 10 weeks off where they're not in school. And so everybody knows this if they've got kids, that the first month of school is they're just being retaught and just to get them caught up. So summer reading is so important, and we are looking to develop multiple initiatives to make sure that is kept at the forefront. You have to read to your children during those, make sure that they're reading during those summer months.
Wow, so this year...
Oh, I forgot the third one. The third one is family literacy.
Okay.
We have literacy challenges for adults here in our community, and so we're looking to improve that too. Sorry.
So this year, because there's a change of focus, some of the money that we give will be used to help launch and expand new programs to target some of these issues, not just go to nonprofit groups that have been around for a long time and have established missions.
Absolutely, and we may get some pushback there because obviously you can't do new and exciting stuff and all your same stuff too. So there's going to be some prioritization. But we've been talking with our agencies. We're going to work on this to do this in a transparent way with a good process around it, and the feedback we've gotten from our agencies is they're not overly worried. They think they understand what we're trying to accomplish. They understand the upstream focus, and a lot of them are looking to adapt their programs to help us. So we're excited to work with them.
Take some of the pressure off of them
Absolutely.
Down the road, you would hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the tough stuff that comes up that as the president of the United Way, you go around, you're making the pitch to my company, others, as part of the annual campaign. What are some of the objections that you hear most frequently to people who don't want to give or that they're concerned about it?
Everybody loves us, Matt. I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, how can we give more? No.
Next question.
Next question is, well, I don't like to dwell on the negative, but I think that when there's a couple things. One is coercion. Sometimes people feel pressured to give, and a lot of times that is sort of a personal perception.
Okay.
But it's real to them. Sometimes in the past, we have competitive, CEOs or a department head that wants to get 100% of their department, or maybe when somebody was in the military and they've had somebody that's really pushed them, and later on in life they don't forget that. Our policy at United Way is we don't want any coercion. We don't want anybody to feel forced to give. This is America. You should feel free to give. We want education-based campaigns, and we want to let people know how their dollars are being used, like giving through United Way to 40-something different agencies, or supporting some of these new initiatives that we've been talking about. When we train folks to go out to talk to people and companies, our goal is 100% quality, non-coercive ask. We want to invite people to participate in the campaign, let them know that they can make a big difference, let them know that they can channel their money if they want to their choice, and so that sometimes happens. Sometimes we hear about overhead rate. What's your overhead percentage? And I want to talk to you maybe another time about the overhead myth. A lot of the big charity watchdogs like GuideStar, they are saying, look, don't use overhead rate as
it's not the end all be all.
It's not the end all.
It's something to look at.
Right.
What is yours?
Well, I don't want to fall into the myth, but we do a good job. I have a board that expects us to run a tight ship. So our United Way Brevard County has the lowest overhead rate of any United Way in the state. It's under 10%. Our 5-year average is about, I think, 9.3%. So we
you're well within good by the GuideStar and other
absolutely.
Standards.
But again, it's something I don't want to. Even though we do well there, I don't want to encourage folks to focus on that. Our United Way fundraising does lend itself to lower overhead because we have payroll deduction in the workplace. When we have some advantages. If you have special event fundraising, the costs are high. If it's a direct mail fundraising, it's even higher. And so it depends on the fundraising. But the reality is in
other words, if you put on an event to raise money for charity, fully half of what, say you put on a concert, you may spend 70% of that money to pay the band for the concert, but that 30% of what you make for charity is pretty good. Right.
And if that's so it's whatever works, but at the end of the day, it's what are they doing with the money? Are they achieving their mission? Are they having impact? Are they changing and saving lives? We like to think that we're doing that in a great way.
Planned Parenthood, in or out?
We do not fund Planned Parenthood, and never have. There's not a Planned Parenthood in Brevard County. I know other United Ways have, and a lot of times that's a code for abortion.
It is. That's why I asked.
And I will tell you that no United Way anywhere has ever funded abortion services. Sometimes that gets put out there. It's just not true. Some United Ways have funded Planned Parenthood because of the women's health services, but not a case here.
What about Boy Scouts? Are they still supported by the United Way?
Absolutely. Again, the United Way. I mentioned there's 1,300 separate.
The Brevard County United Way.
Yes. Our United Way was founded in 1957 here. We had our first campaign in 1958, and the Boy Scouts was in that group of agencies that we funded first, and they've been continually funded ever since. And I'm really close with a lot of our Boy Scout leaders. And there's been some changes or some publicity just a couple of weeks back on some of their decisions on how they handle their membership and such. But for us, they run a good program, and they're impacting the lives of young men and young women too in a positive way.
Well, I was a scout. Thought I'd disclose that just for the viewers who might want to know. But and give us a sense of how you vet not companies, but charities that come and ask for money from the United Way. What do you look at?
It's sort of a representative democracy type of approach, hopefully better than our current representative democracy happening now in Congress. But basically what happens is that I mentioned we have 400 different organizations that support our campaign. And we go out mainly to the larger ones and invite people to sit in on what we call our community impact process. And we form panels of volunteers, 8 or 9 panels with 9 or 10 volunteers each, about 100 people. And they look at a subset of the agencies. So the agencies that are impacting youth programs, for example. Okay. We'll have 9 or 10 folks go visit those agencies. The agencies will have submitted budget applications to us. They'll review that, go out and visit the agencies, ask them how they're doing, have they met their program goals, and then they'll make a recommendation. The volunteers will make a recommendation to our board on how much funding should go to that agency. So I think if you see that an agency is getting United Way funding, it's kind of like a good housekeeping seal of approval, that people are looking at that we get their audits, that we're looking over and making sure that they're spending the money wisely.
Rob Rains, thank you so much for joining us here today, and good luck with the campaign.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Well, that's our program. Remember to comment on anything you see on this program or read in Florida Today. Shoot me an email at letters@floridatoday.com. We'll see you right here next week on The Matt Reed Show.